Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
What can I say? I bought an RX7 shell, I built it, I blew it up, and now I'm in the process of rebuilding it. So if you watched the last episode, you saw that I tore apart the back of my RX7, got those faulty fuel pumps the hell out of here. I started mounting up the new Walbro 450, and today we're going to go ahead and continue by running the fuel lines in the front and getting this down to a single feed, single return. Nothing to do but to get started. So, getting the strut tower bar out of the way so I have access to the upper intake manifold, removed the Mishimoto clamp, got the 4 nuts holding the elbow to the throttle body, and then started taking the upper intake manifold off the car. Now all I gotta do is pull the throttle cable off of the throttle body. In my particular setup, I actually mounted the Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator to the manifold, so I got to get that 10mm bolt out of the way. And now I can start addressing the bolts that hold the upper intake manifold to the lower. One piece of advice, make sure that you have a hand holding it because this assembly will start to teeter over and it just makes it a lot easier. Now I had a vacuum line and an IAT sensor plug I had to remove that was holding me up, but now I can take it off and put it on the bench. So in my old setup, I have 2-6 feeds, right? So I was feeding the primaries and the secondaries and then going to the fuel pressure regulator. I'm going to be removing one of those feeds, jumping between the rails and going to the fuel pressure regulator, then to the return. So I grabbed my trusty adjustable wrench with some Tessa tape wrapped around it, and I started taking the fittings off of the regulator. Just like that, we got the regulator out. So now that we're going to a single feed, I got the ORB to 6AN out. I'm going to put the plug in, and that way we have 1 feed in and 1 return. Now I got to get the fittings off the fuel rail and get these lines out of the way. So I got the old lines out, and it's time to make new PTFE fuel lines. Alright, so my order from Summit arrived. I got my fittings, my hoses. I'm going to go ahead and start assembling these PTFE lines. If you do want a how-to guide, I have one annotated in the top right. But I'm going to go ahead and grab this grinder, spinny wheel, and cut this up. And then I'm probably going to do a little jump cut to the finished product. And there it is. Look at that. Vibrant fittings, vibrant line, works great. Since I'm going down to 1 feed line, I'm going to be capping the extra line here. And I'm also going to be capping it on the inside of the fuel hat. Alright, now it's time for the good stuff. Like I said in the last video, I'm going to be reusing this hat, most of the fittings and everything here. I'm going to go ahead and get this fuel pump mounted up, but I noticed this line's a little bit long, so unlike me, make sure you measure twice or else you're going to be cutting 3 or 4 times. So I got the right length here on the fuel line. I got it mounted to the fuel pump. Now I'm going to go ahead and put this barb on the other end, and I'm going to go ahead and screw this into the existing fittings, and we should be good to go and reuse this assembly. Some on-the-fly ingenuity. I grabbed some aluminum sleeve material I had, cut it to size, ground a little ridge in there, and now the worm gear clamp will sit in there tight and secure. Now, if you watched last video, you know that I was supposed to be working with Donnie to maybe come up with like a plasma cut mounting solution. He's really busy. I took it into my own hands. I came up with this makeshift solution. Honestly, this is going to work great. This is actually really secure. I measured everything out. Plenty of clearance to the bottom of the tank. We should have no issues. I'm going to go ahead and finish wiring this up. So I almost forgot. I got to put the fuel level sensor and the fuel temp sensor in. So I got that mounted up. Now I'm going to go ahead and start wiring. Alright, so I don't want to bore you with the step-by-step. It's literally positive to positive, ground to ground. I'm going to resolder the fuel temp sensor connection here, and I'm going to go ahead and rewire the fuel level sensor, and that should be it. Alright, so I went ahead and ran the wires. I resoldered both joints, the one on the fuel temp sensor and the fuel sending unit. Those both broke off. Those are good to go now. And I also wired up the connector, got that all heat shrink and wrapped up and good to go. Alright, so I grabbed that fuel pump assembly, brought it back. We're looking at the fuel tank right now. I'm actually marking off the direction of flow, which fittings we're using, which ones I've blocked off since we went down to that 1 fuel pump. But I'm going to go ahead and get this put in the tank, get it all nice and situated, make sure we're not hung up on anything. I'm going to get it bolted down, plumbed up, and then we should be good to go. Alright, so I got all the lines plumbed, I got the connections in place, I even marked off which line is in use so I know going forward. Now, only thing I need to do is turn on the fuel pump, and I'm not seeing any pressure, but I'm hearing it run. So I'm going to go ahead up front, check for any leaks. I think we're good, and yeah, it looks like the connector's actually off the sensor, so I'm going to go ahead and get that plugged in. And while I'm doing that, take a listen, you should hear the fuel flowing. So yeah, with that plugged in now, I'm going to go ahead and check the pressure. I know my tuner said he wanted right around 40 PSI base. Obviously, when the car's run, it's going to drop. But yeah, we're at 43, so that's pretty solid. Wideband's reading 22.4. That means the car's not on. It's all good. But yeah, the fuel pump sounds really healthy. So I don't see any leaks back here either, so that's really good. I'm going to go ahead and double check the front just to be sure. A little paranoid with all the fuel problems we've had, but it looks like I'm good to go. I'm going to get started on putting this back together. All right, so I buttoned up the fuel access port there. I got the trunk nice and kind of cleaned up. Hopefully I don't have to open this up again, but I am going to move those grounds. I'm not happy with, stacking 3 grounds on that one stud, so I'm going to get those relocated and then I should be good to go. So quick detour, I'm going to be drilling out this JB weld right here. I'm going to be mounting up the JP3 booster relocation kit. Essentially, it's going to replace this silver tube right here that runs from the brake booster over to where the ABS used to be. Previous owner had JB welded this shut. Common mod for, the secondaries, get those blocked off. But going to get it disassembled, clean out any shavings, which I don't think I had any because I prepped it correctly. But now I'm going to go ahead and get the bracket mounted onto the correct location and test fit the vacuum tube, make sure it all works, and should be good to get this throttle body mounted back on there and get this manifold back on the car. Alright, that out of the way, I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the vacuum line, get the IAT sensor plugged in, go get the gasket real quick, and get this manifold back on. She is sitting pretty. The gasket's lined up. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these bolts tightened, get the ground hooked up on the back there, and then I should be able to move on to the elbow. So I got the fuel pressure regulator mounted onto the upper. I'm going to grab that throttle cable and get it mounted on the throttle body. So I struggled a little bit more than I want to admit getting this sleeve lined up. I got the Mishimoto clamp on. I got the elbow mounted to the throttle body. Everything seems to be done. I think at this point it's ready to start. I'm going to go ahead and kick it with some old school Halo split screen here. The top is the inside, bottom is the outside. And honestly, I'm just really happy and pumped to be here. It was a long road rebuilding this car. This is going to be the first time she started on her own power in a while. Everything looks good, and I'm just going to go ahead and shut up and get this thing started. Well, she's running and I'm happy. It's been a really long road. She's sat all winter. Spring's finally here. It's warming up. I think we're good to maybe take her for a little drive. Well, she's finally starting to warm up. Got a nice choppy idle. Got pretty good fuel pressure still. I'm happy. I'm going to go ahead and grab my H3R Performance fire extinguisher. Bring this on the road with me. Going to take her for a quick spin. I'm still waiting on my second one. It's supposed to go underneath the passenger seat. Link in description. A little discount code to help you guys out. But yeah, so I took her out and this is what happened. She left me stranded. So essentially, I lost fuel pressure again. And I don't know what to do. At this point, I've ruled everything out. I've swapped relays, but I've used the same brand. At this point, I think I'm just going to wire up a different brand of relay, see how it goes. But again, when people tell you buy a 90s JDM, this is the shit you're going to run into. There's a lot of shitty wiring. It's really bad. And honestly, I don't know what they were thinking, but it's a straight up dumpster fire of how they wired these cars. And on that positive note, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thumbs up if you like it, dislike if you didn't. Comment down below what is your favorite 90s JDM vehicle. And always remember to subscribe. On another note, I'm going to be at the Broke East season opener May 19th, Stafford Speedway. It's going to be an awesome event, and I hope to see you guys there. And until then, see you on the next one.